Hey guys, today we're going to be working on a few new characters for the concept children's book that I've been working on, Frank and Beans. Today we're going to be working on an owl. Okay, so today, of course, I always like to do a warm-up for the day. But I also always like, not always, but sometimes, most of the time, I like my warm-up to have meaning. I've really endeavored to do a children's book for myself. I just wrapped a children's book. Buddy Peg's taking the lead, and that's at the publisher right now. So I'm going on to my next personal project, which is the Frank and Beans story about friendship. So today, I'm going to be sketching out really simple character sketches and poses for one of the tertiary characters, not a main character, it's just a character that comes in and out of the story, sort of like it's not like the Greek chorus. And if anybody knows what the Greek chorus is, it's that moment in time when it kind of explains things about the story that don't necessarily take a focal point to the story, but they're integral. So, sort of like Jiminy Cricket. Jiminy Cricket being the conscience of Pinocchio, but he also kind of told and narrated the story, and that's sort of what this character does. I'm, very excited about this, but this particular character, his name is Hootsburg, and he is an owl. I haven't really landed on what type of owl he is yet, so I'm just kind of generally sketching maybe a brown owl or a barn owl, or the next one here you're going to see is going to be a white owl. So, but, I'm starting out with blue line pencil and just kind of working out and fleshing out the character. Whenever one starts an endeavor like this, especially if you have experience in doing stuff like this, you know that it's an extremely daunting task. Doing a children's book, I like to explain, it's like giving birth to something. Of course, I've never given birth to something. I'm a guy. But it really is. I mean, you have to, especially if it's not an established character brand, or if it's not an established story, or anything like that, you go through so many different evolutions of what the character is, and what he or she looks like, and how their actions are defined in the story context, and it's a very long process. I'm developing some characters for the next story of Buddy Pegs, and what we're going through right now is just an evolution of the characters, because as your story gets developed and as it changes in the mind of the author, and then you have the illustrator that comes along and he puts your ideas to visual representation, a lot of times it'll spur another idea in the author that maybe he didn't think was there. So that's what's happening with me in this story. It originally started out as a very short. It actually started out as sort of a thought, because I grew up in a very out-of-the-way rural part of Louisiana called Denham Springs, and my original concept was to do a story about friends. And see, whenever I grew up, I lived on this one-lane street, basically in a town that didn't have a lot of people, and it didn't have a lot of industry. And I think there were 5 or 6 of us, and we grew up together. I mean, we went out in the woods, we went in the creek. I mean, if you think of Huckleberry Finn, you really have to think about what I grew up in. I rode my bike a lot, and stayed over at a friend's house, a lot of sleepovers, a lot of building of forts in the woods. And back in those days, you didn't have to really worry about all the weirdness that you have to worry about now about letting your kids out. It was really encouraged. So I really grew up in kind of I call it like a cradle of goodness. and I was allowed to really go out and do whatever I wanted to. It's kind of mind-boggling. My dad was an electrician, and he worked all day from 4 in the morning until 6:30 at night. He would come home and he would eat, and then he would sit on the chair and he would watch some TV and go back to. Then he would sleep in the chair, and he did this for years and years. Of course, my dad is older, and he comes from that generation. I mean, he helped me whatever he needed to, and he did what he could. And of course, my mom was there. She's a realtor, and she really supported. And I had 2 older siblings. But what I'm trying to say is, I grew up in a traditional. I don't want to say American because I don't want to be biased, but it was just a very good childhood. Put it that way. I learned to shoot guns at a very young age. I learned how to use hand tools. I learned how to fix stuff. I learned how to do all these things. Ride my bike. I fixed my own bike when I was 8 years old. I could do all of these things and use tools and hand tools and build things and build tree houses. I mean, it is endless. So I originally wanted to do a story about my 5 friends, and it was called Ordinary Denim. And it was just basically a story of all the fun characters and craziness that me and my friends experienced whenever we were kids. Building forts and digging in the ground and tree houses and just some of the tomfoolery that we did when we were younger. And who knows, one day I might do the story as a children's book, but I really love doing animals. So then I did Ordinary Denim with animals instead of people. And the whole story concept morphed. I mean, it's been like 5 years since I've been working on this in my brain and writing stuff down and doing concept art for this particular story. So it's gone through a huge amount of change from whenever I first started to where it is now. But the core of it still has to do with friendship, exploration, freedom, and getting out there and as a kid, and that feeling you have of adventure and riding on your bike and going out in the woods and dressing up, and people call it cosplaying. I mean, we used to do cosplay when I was a kid. It was called dress up in army fatigues and go out in the woods for 6 hours and build forts and play war. And then we would play spy, and then we just all of those fun things. And I grew up in the early 80s, so video games were in their infancy. So I can remember whenever Atari came and ColecoVision came and Nintendo came in the late 80s. And, things kind of changed. People stayed indoors a little bit more. And, that's one of the things that I'm trying to really educate my son and my children about is being outside and exploring those things that are wonderful is something that you should really enjoy. So that's what I'm doing with Frank and Beans. Frank and Beans is basically a story of friendship between, like I said, an alligator and a bear. And all these tertiary characters will be modeled after the characters and the kids that I grew up with. This particular character, I'm not going to reference the individual that this is modeled after, but has a little bit of attitude, and also has that real wisdom and knowledge of things that have already gone past. So he's going to be sort of a not a fly on the wall, but kind of a narrator. And who knows, I might do an audiobook or something along those lines. And again, who knows, it might change. I don't know. I've done Hootsburg now quite a few times, and he's changed quite a few times. But I really enjoy it. I like doing this process. I like sitting down. This took me about 35 minutes to do because, again, I'm so busy right now. I really can't spare the time. But I really enjoy doing the videos for you guys. I really enjoy doing, the short videos and just showing you the drawing process. Obviously, this is traditional. I didn't go digital this time. I might do digital next time. I've got quite a few formats that I can show you guys digital artwork. Different machines and different programs and stuff. So if you have any comments or anything, or questions, just definitely leave them in the comments below. I might do a live stream soon as well, just to change things up a little bit. I've never done a live stream before, so we'll see how that works. But yeah, I enjoy doing this. I love doing animals. I love doing owls. I love doing character animals, especially. And again, I'd like to also do some drawing out and about in the woods, maybe, or see what's here up in the mountains. I live up in the mountains of Georgia, so I don't really have a lot of interaction with people. But anyway, thank you guys for visiting, and like and subscribe and share, and we'll see you next time.